Richard recently, or at least within the last year, 2 years, has passed away.
That's right, 15 months ago.
And how old was he when he passed away?
25.
What kind of signs did you see that led you to believe there was something not correct with him?
We didn't see any definite signs. He was a twin, so, and with the 3 other kids, we had a good idea that he was on target with all his milestones. But it was unusual. He had to have his adenoids out at 14 months. He had had some bronchial problems. So we just noticed that was a little different. He had had an umbilical hernia. Nothing unusual. What was unusual was that one child had all of these same things. At his routine 2-year-old physical, our pediatrician, who had been discounting that it was kind of unusual for one child, I could tell, I still remember it, sitting in the chair, his brother had already been examined for the checkup, and I could just see the doctor was spending a little bit more time examining his abdomen. And I remember asking him, saying, "What's up?" He says, "Oh, nothing." And I had commented that his fontanelle hadn't closed. And he had detected a very slight enlarged liver. And that was the start of the process there. At that time was probably, I didn't even go into the meeting, the examination with any concern.
Okay. And roughly how long after that did it take them to diagnose Sanfilippo A?
2.5 months.
After that, you guys were told, maybe you want to explain, what were you told by the doctor about the outcome and what you could do?
Well, we had gone to Children's Hospital in Boston, Dr. Alan Crocker, and he explained that a little what he knew about MPS and Sanfilippo. And it wasn't a good prognosis. It was all negative. And we would be looking forward to difficult times in a degenerative existence for Richard, both mentally and physically.
He came down by himself. I mean, how bad is this? I'm sorry, but don't. Richard, how bad is this? You know you have to come home. Don't let him have any more. That's terrible. Richard, it's time. No more beer. No more beer. Do you understand?
I think that one of the hardest parts about having a child with a severe disability is knowing that one day they will pass on. Now, these 2 families I'm about to show you, they both had recently lost a child, and they still have one more with the same disability, which means that all they can do is just wait for that child to pass on. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do. And your children are?
Stephanie Barnett and Stephen Barnett.
And ages?
Stephanie died at age 15 on February 26, 2011, and Stephen is 14. Yeah, when we first were diagnosed, it's like being punched in the stomach. It just hurts so bad, and it's hard to really see past the end of it and to imagine what your life's going to be like. You just can't, because it's, you know, everything that you read and everything you know is going to happen. It's just grim. It's just horrible. And so I guess the beginning days of the diagnosis are just so bleak and you feel so hopeless, but know that life does get better. You learn to treasure your kids and to really just take each day, day by day, not trying to think about tomorrow or 5 years from now or what life's going to be like, and just really treasure your kids.
Yeah, live in the moment.
And love them, and you find a new value to life that, you know.
Now, was there anything in particular that helped you guys deal with it? Or
I read a lot of books. and really just searched out a lot of information, anything I can find to help me to cope and help me to really deal with the stress. Because I think dealing with stress is going to be key to getting through the days, because there's going to be a lot of stressful days ahead.
Okay, and do you want to show me that picture?
Oh, sure. This is a picture of Stephanie. This was taken on her 15th birthday, and this is actually the pamphlet that was given out at her funeral service. And on the back of this flyer we wrote, "Pain and acceptance can coexist in the heart to create peace." And that's one thing we learned, is that, you know, there's a place in your heart to allow that grief and to allow that pain and that hurt, and not allow it to take over your life and ruin your life, but to allow it to exist, and you can deal with it and manage it and accept it, so that you can have a peaceful life and still treasure what life is given.
One thing that you're going to find out is, as you're diagnosed and you get more involved with MPS, you're going to find that your family's going to grow. There's many, many, many wonderful people out there through the MPS family that you're going to meet, and you're going to learn to cherish these people and to love them very much. They're really the only people that's going to understand what you're going through. So my advice is to embrace these people, get to know them, and because you're gonna find a lot of strength and a lot of knowledge through these other individuals who's walking the same path as you.
Chip and David.
Have Hunter syndrome.
And Chip recently passed away.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Last March.
That's pretty recent. Okay. At what age were they diagnosed?
David was 4, Chip was 2, and Chip was diagnosed first.
Was there something lead you guys to believe that there was something wrong?
I had my degree in early childhood education. At 1 year, I felt there was something wrong with Dave. So there was just a lot of delays there, and Chip even had more than what David did.
Okay, and now, this isn't a surprise to you guys, because, I mean, it's a surprise that it happened, but it's not a surprise since it runs in your family.
Right. We had no idea that I was a carrier because of what was told to my aunt that was only passed to the first female in each family. So we knew that my aunt had kids, but honestly, I never knew what they had. It was kind of hidden in the closet at that point in time. I did not know that my grandma had 2 boys, so I actually had 2 uncles with it, and that she had a brother with it until after our boys were diagnosed. So that's when everything kind of came out to us. So it's there, but we didn't know.
We never suspected.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a big shock.
It was a shock to us, yeah.
But then when you finally told your family, they were like, oh,
Yeah,
we had that.
yeah.
But they thought it was hurlers, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what was told to my aunt back in the 60s, is that her boys had hurlers.
You looked at pictures of them, correct? And they have hunters?
They have hunters.
Although it's very similar, but...
Right, yeah. And even my uncles, you could tell that they had Hunter syndrome.
Do you remember how old he was when he was diagnosed?
We started testing about 1, and it was about 1.5 by the time we got everything.
Okay, now, was there anything that triggered an alarm?
Why we went for the
Yeah.
testing? Yeah, we noticed the bump in his spine. So it just started there. We started actually kind of like at a back doctor first,
Okay.
and then to a specialist, which ended up in genetics.
Okay, now, it actually runs in your family, correct?
Right, I had a half-brother who had it, who was born in 1961 and passed away at the age of 12.
Okay. So it wasn't a complete and total shock?
Well, it was, because that's kind of a different story, because I didn't know of my brother's diagnosis. I knew of my brother, well, I was a couple of years younger, and when he turned 5, he went to live in a state hospital. That's what a lot of them did back then, apparently.
Yeah.
So by the time I started having children 30 years later, I don't know if it was just put in the back of my mother's head, just forgot about it. I had so many sisters that had children that it was just never mentioned. So none of us knew of his diagnosis.
Okay, so
there was no, I didn't have any idea I should be doing any kind of genetic testing.
okay, and you said you do have a lot of other siblings?
Yeah.
And how many?
Well, there's 8 of us in my family, but I have 3 older sisters who have had children before me, long before me. And most of them were girls, couple boys, but everybody was fine.
Has anyone in the family ever been tested since?
I've had one niece tested, and I think that's about it right now.
Okay. And your other sisters are aware of stuff?
Now they're aware.
Yeah.
Their daughters are aware, yeah.
Okay.
So they know that they have the, ability to get tested.
Can you please tell me your names?
I'm Brian Mado.
I'm Marcy Humphrey.
And Brian, you have?
MPS 2 Hunter syndrome.
How old are you approximately?
39, but I feel like I'm 90 something in MPS years.
Okay. Do you remember when you were diagnosed?
I was diagnosed at age 5 from Dr. Kopitz in Johns Hopkins in Baltimore.
Now, you have a brother, right?
Yeah, I have an older brother. He's 3 or 4 years older than me.
He also has MPS?
Yeah.
So were the diagnosis because of him, because of you, or both of you?
I guess my mother had it in her family, so she kind of suspected. And she just realized that, we weren't growing properly. So our primary care doctor recommended Dr. Kopitz in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, now you say it ran in your family. What other relatives do you have?
I have a distant cousin in Ohio. I think he's about 26 right now. I've only met him a couple times. And I just recently found out, maybe 7 years ago, that I had a great-great uncle who died when he was 44 years old.
And that was in, you said, early 1900s?
It was 1915, around there.
Okay. What age did you guys start to realize that there was something going wrong?
When he was like...
At 5, when he went to school for the first time, that
and he couldn't learn.
The professor, the teacher told us that something was wrong, and it took about 1 year to discover the illness because it is so weird that the doctors didn't know.
Okay. So at about 6, you started to investigate?
No, like around 5. And he was diagnosed when he was 6.
Oh, so they actually figured out what it was?
Yes.
That's pretty good. I've heard of a lot of, like, San Filippo's, them not getting diagnosed at all. Like, they get diagnosed as autistic. And then,
that's what they told us at the beginning, that he was autistic. But then we went to the genetics department at Miami Children's Hospital, and
one of the themes that quickly emerged as I went on my trip was the family's belief in a higher being or a higher power. So whether they believed in God, Jesus, Allah, or anyone else. There were 2 stories that I'm going to show you that if you do believe in a higher power, this will reinforce your belief even more. But if you don't believe in one, you probably will after this. And which one of your children is affected with an MPS disorder?
Ian Moses Bailey. He goes by his middle name Moses, and he has MPS type 3C.
3C. And MPS doesn't run at all in your family, and also Moses is...
He's adopted.
Okay. It's an interesting story about how he was adopted. I've heard it from you. Maybe you want to tell me from your perspective?
My wife and I were working on a short-term assignment in a missionary school in Pakistan between 96 and 98. And it was in the spring of 1998. There had been a very heavy blizzard in that part of the country, and just after that blizzard, when school opened, still lots of snow on the ground. On the same day that Becky started teaching in class, I was going through the woods near the school to go from one section of the campus to the other, and I found our son Moses. Somebody had deposited him in the snow in a plastic trash bag along a small trail that went through the middle of the woods there that went down to a main road that I was heading towards. So I picked him up and raced him back to the school, to the dispensary, and got him warmed up. And then we began a rather lengthy process of getting the legal permissions and the documents that were necessary to adopt him, both there and then to bring him back to the States and adopt him here.
And I think having a third child has actually helped a little bit with that.
It's been really good. I definitely think, that was definitely God. So we actually, I was actually heading to the doctor to get a vasectomy and totaled my car, and then never rescheduled the appointment, and we had Amy.
2 months later.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you guys start to realize that there was something going on?
He had a murky medical start. He was intubated at birth, in and out of the hospital for various unknown reasons. He had an infection, and then developmentally he was delayed in all aspects, physically mostly. Didn't ever roll over, crawl. And really what led us to his diagnosis was around 14 months he lost his language. He had about 6 or 7 words, and then they were unintelligible, we couldn't understand, and then they were gone. And then his sleeping patterns started to really present. And so we went to an ENT physician that was recommended through our pediatrician. And we were just really fortunate. Our ENT doctor had worked with a kiddo with Hurler syndrome out in California during his residency, and he just kind of took note of Jack's facial features and asked if he could take a picture of Jack and send it to a geneticist. And from there on, they tested him for Hurler's. It was negative, positive for Hunter syndrome.
Now you say facial features. Do you mean like me? Which means he's dead sexy.
He's dead sexy. Hot.
He is a handsome boy.